Will Joe Milton match Hendon Hooker's success? Let me get a yay, nay on the message board, guys. Tell me what you think and your thoughts. By the way, if you're watching on Twitter, you can comment there. It's a great way to interact, and we will respond to you. So we're almost in game week. We want to hear from you. Will Joe Milton match Hendon Hooker's success? I feel very strongly about this and this question. But let me start with you, Caleb Calhoun. Will Joe Milton match Hendon Hooker's success? Before we get into your answer, how would you define that? Is that wins? Is that yards? Is that completion percentage? What all is that? Because Hendon Hooker was successful basically in every category you can imagine, with the exception of staying healthy throughout the season, and that was out of his control. So what do you define his success as last year?
I think the most important stats are touchdown to turnover ratio, and that includes running and passing touchdowns and interceptions and fumbles. I think you got to throw those in. And then
I didn't know that was a stat yet, but I like it.
I think it should. Dave, we got to invent that stat. Me and you.
No, really. I didn't. At our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, you didn't bring that up, but I'm all for that. So
yes,
yeah, that's fantastic.
And then my other one is yards per attempt / carry. So the number of yards, a combination, the number of yards you gain per carry when he runs the ball, and the number of yards you gain per attempt when you throw the ball, and combine those. And if that's higher than Hendon Hooker's last year, I just made up two stats, guys. I made them up because I'm just a genius like that. But if you go with those two stats and they are better than Hendon Hooker's last year, then it would be a better season. Now, Joe Milton in mop-up duty did have a better touchdown to interception ratio than Hendon Hooker. I don't know if you guys know this. Joe Milton still hasn't thrown a pick since he's been at Tennessee. He threw 10 touchdowns and no interceptions last year. Granted, all in mop-up duty, but he did start the Orange Bowl, and he started the first 2 games of 2021, and he still hasn't thrown a pick. And he averaged nearly 12 yards an attempt. I think with all of those things, he's going to not match Hendon Hooker's production, but he's going to be close. And I think he's going to be close because I don't think he's going to match it, largely because I think Josh Heupel is going to run it a little bit differently. He's not going to call as many deep balls for Milton as he did for Hooker. He's going to have Milton kind of work the field a little more. So I think just by that very nature, his numbers will be a little bit down, but he'll still be highly efficient.
So you're saying not as successful. I'm going to weigh in on that. I want to remind you that today's tough question today brought to you by Zen Sports. Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares. On Zen Sports, what you see is what you get. With their cash rewards program, you get a lot of cash. For a welcome bonus, earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the code HOOKED. That's HOOKED, HOOKED. That's right, unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting, keep earning, with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that. And refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you bet big on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. Here's what the message board says before we get to my answer. It is Rocky Top Tom said he'll exceed if the offensive line can get their act together. So not a definitive answer there. And I don't know that they have or haven't. I'm kind of optimistic based off what Joey Halsley said yesterday, and we can get into that. And we will with Fred. Different but successful. Determining success, according to Dan, success is a playoff. According to Travis, better running backs, better receivers. JoJo will exceed Hook. SC Scout guy says, I don't think he will be as successful. He will still have a very good, solid season. So here's where I am on this. I'm kind of along the lines of what Travis says. I think more successful, and I'm determining that by wins, going against one of my stronger beliefs that the win-loss record should not be attached as a quarterback stat. Okay, there's 20 one other people on the field, and there's a lot of other players that come on the field, and a quarterback has the greatest impact, but not the only impact. But I predicted them as making the college football playoff. So for me to sit here and say that that's not more successful would be a little bit silly. So I think it's more successful. I don't know that the stats will stack up and be as stellar because I think that Josh Heupel took some teams by surprise and took some coaches by surprise last year. They'll be more adept at handling that, but better running game, I think so. Better group of receivers when you talk about Cedric Tillman was injured for most of the year last year. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't have any way of arguing against more successful, because if you make the college football playoff, that is more successful. Caleb, your thoughts on that? As I remind everybody to hit like and subscribe, keep the comments coming, and we want you to be a part of the program. We want to open them up to more listeners day in and day out. So, Caleb, I think I would be contradicting myself if I didn't say more successful.
So you think more successful because he will have maybe not exactly on Hendon Hooker's level, but comparable stats to Hendon Hooker, and the team success will be a little bit better, is where you're
yes.
at.
Comparable so it's not like, is the perfect word. Yes.
Right. Because it's not like T. Martin, Tennessee was more successful in 98, but his stats were nowhere near Peyton Manning's in 97. It was like a different stratosphere. Not that T. Martin was bad. It's just the stats weren't close to what Peyton Manning did in 97.
Well, and part of that too, in all fairness, was they limited what T. Martin could do. And I know that speaking to him, he was frustrated during that season in 98 that he wasn't allowed to do more. So he didn't even have the opportunity to go out there and put up those type of stats. Not saying that he would have, Caleb, but he didn't even have that opportunity from the get.
Yeah, I knew they kept the harness on him through 4 or 5 games. And then really they didn't have a choice once Jamal Lewis got hurt. That's when kind of they were like, okay, we got it. It was the second half. And I'd love to talk about Fred when he's on about this, but I feel like it was the second half of the Georgia game where they just went, all right, let's go T. And that's when he kind of came into his own. As far as Milton with this, one of the things you said that I think would bolster your argument, because I disagree with you on it, is that you think he'll have a better season, even though teams may have at least they won't be as caught by surprise by Josh Heupel as they were last year. Dave, I don't think Josh Heupel caught them by surprise last year, because Josh Heupel was already there in 2021. Everybody saw the offense in 2021 and what it could become. And it's not like Nick Saban didn't see that offense, and it didn't matter. He faced Hendon Hooker. He had already faced Hendon Hooker, and it still didn't matter. Hendon Hooker torched his defense last year. So I'm not so sure Heupel caught people by surprise.
Well, I think the culture of Tennessee's program is what caught other teams by surprise. Jalen Hyatt, if not for a great culture, would have just faded into obscurity or transferred. So there were a lot of guys that elevated their play. So maybe not the actual scheme. Maybe they knew what he liked to run offensively, but the entire program taking a step up, you'd have to agree, took us by surprise, took the nation by surprise, right?
Yeah, I think that Tennessee was a little.
Maybe I'm thinking big picture more than just scheme.
Well, we're forgetting how close last year could have been to almost being a repeat of 2021. Tennessee needed overtime to beat Pitt. The defense won that game more than the offense. They easily could have lost to Pitt, and they easily could have lost to Florida. And what are we talking about if Tennessee's 2-2 going to LSU? If they are 2-2 going to LSU, Dave, I'm pretty sure they lose in Baton Rouge at that point, because they feel like the season is not what they wanted out of it. So but holding off Pitt and holding off Florida gave them exactly the momentum they needed going into a bye and then coming back to face LSU. I mean, look, what do you think, Dave? So they start 6-0 after beating Alabama, but say they lose to Pitt and Florida early, because they easily could have lost those games. So say it goes the other way and they lose those 2 games. Do you really think they're beating LSU and Alabama after that? I don't.
Yeah, fair point. The Pitt game was more of a turnaround game than we give it credit for. We want to look at SEC games and we look at it in retrospect and say, well, they could have lost to Pitt and still been in the running for the SEC championship. So that's not that big of a game. But as far as belief in the system, belief in the defense, no, that was a big time deal.